insects. I am Vorinclex, voice of hunger, master of the tangle. Your regular hosts are indisposed. My lesser siblings and I are taking over this broadcast. We will teach you how to play us in your commander format. Harness the power of the wilds. Crush your opponents underfoot. Survival of the fittest will win the day. I am a 7/6 Praetor for 6 green. I trample over all smaller creatures, and when you tap a land for mana, I can wring out another piece from it. When your opponents try to tap a land for mana, my imposing presence will keep that land tapped during their next untapped step. The Tangle cuts off resources for those not worthy, and so we will show the true power of nature's might with the most powerful beasts the world has seen. The law of survival says that only the strongest may survive. The food chain must be maintained. However, not all creatures are as weak as they appear, and some serve to fuel and spread Phyrexia's glorious infection. Glistener Elf, Blight Mamba, Cyst Bearer, and Blight Widow are all just carriers of the oil, nothing more. Rot Wolf, Viridian Corruptor, Tangle Angler, the Telgelad Fallen, Phyrexian Hydra, Putrefax, Phyrexian Swarm Lord, and Spine Biter all also serve our cause, though nature saw fit to give them extra tools to handle the weak. We get to draw a card when something bitten by our Rot Wolf dies. Our Viridian Corruptor can destroy the most disgusting of nature's mockeries, artifacts. When it enters the battlefield, the angler can draw in foes to feel its bite. The fallen cannot be touched by artifacts. The Hydra slowly crumbles as it spreads infection. Putrefax serves to only bite and infect others before expiring. Our Swarm Lord gives us infected insect tokens on each of our turns, depending on how poisoned our enemies are. And Spine Biter can ignore a blocking creature altogether. Truly, some of my finest work. As much as I despise my siblings and their reliance on petty artifacts, even I must admit that the oil has created some exceptional specimens. Beings that are the perfect mix of nature's brutality and the oil's malevolence. Ickerclaw Mere and Plague Mere serve as gruesome reminders that even the sturdy Mirren may fall. Both spread the oil, while the Ichor Claw can make itself bigger when confronted with a defending creature. We can also extract mana from the Plague Mirror, should we need to. I'm led to believe these mana rocks, as you creatures call them, are important in this game you play. Phyrexian Digester, Core Prowler, Corpse Cur, and the Phyrexian Juggernaut all come ready to spread the influence of Phyrexia. When the Prowler dies, we can add additional counters to poisoned players or weakened creatures. The Cur can retrieve a creature with infect from our graveyard back to our hand when it enters the battlefield. And the Juggernaut must attack every turn until either it has crumbled to dust or nothing else remains for it to destroy. Unfortunately, not all of our beasts can serve as hosts for the oil, but their place in the food chain is not to be overlooked. Death Hood Cobra can surprise flying creatures and larger enemies with its abilities to give itself reach and death touch. Viridian Emissary can nourish the very ground beneath our feet when it dies, giving us a basic land when it enters the graveyard. Mycosynth Fiend grows larger and larger, depending on how much poison resides within our enemy's weak, fragile body. The Viridian Betrayers may continue to spread our infection, but only if they sense poison already at play in our foes. Fortunately for us, the Tangle hosts a wide assortment of massive predators, such as the bellowing Tangle Worm and the quilled Slagworm. The Slagworm is simply too large for anything to deal with. The perfect trait for anyone wishing to claim the top of the food chain. And the Tangle Worm frightens our enemy's forces so much that only beings without souls, those wretched creatures of artifice, or fellow green creatures can muster the courage to stand in the way. Plague Maw Beast can consume one of our weaker creatures to further strengthen already present infection. The Rotted Hystrix proves just how resilient nature's influence can make creatures. The Brutalizer Exarch can either seek us out another creature or remove a non-creature problem from the battlefield. And the Liege of the Tangle is a truly massive being, capable of trampling over our weaker foes and turning our lands into 8 creatures to continue the fight. Finally, the Chancellor of the Tangle is a powerful guardian that can grant us extra mana should we find him in our opening hand. Again, I find myself Disgusted by having to use the wholly unnatural filth that is artifice. But even without Phyrexia's oil fueling their bodies, I cannot deny what the Tangle has done with these beings under its care. The insatiable Soul Eater can and will cull the weaker members of our opponent's forces. The vital splicers and maul splicers toy with the natural balance and create life, something I will eventually see brought to an end. But the predators they create are unnaturally resilient, so they can stay for now. The Tangle Hulk is the closest I can claim to a true artificial predator. It has evolved past the need to die, and will serve as a constant reminder for what all should aspire to be. Our last beast of metal is the Thundering Canadon, the blueprint of which all created beings will eventually be born from. Our final creature was taken from Jingitaxius and his experiments looking at other worlds, and will be the instrument of destruction for any who stand in nature's path. The crater hoof behemoth is the peak of our food chain, the apex predator second only to myself, whose trumpeting call and thunderous footfalls strengthen the resolve of our forces, and will allow us to wipe away any stains that seek to mar our legacy. As much as I would love nothing more than to let only creatures run amok, sometimes a little outside interference is required. Corrosive Gale lets us pay whatever we have available in an attempt to bring flying beasts back to the ground where they belong. Thanks to my handiwork in her compilation, we have Glissa's scorn to deal with a single filthy artifact, or creeping corrosion to deal with all of them. Pistis Strike is another way for us to ground pesky airborne menaces with the added benefit of poisoning the creature's controller. And finally, Beast Within lets us destroy anything we desire, while giving the destroyed creature's owner a beast of their very own. A small taste of what life should be. Sometimes nature is a bit too slow for our purposes. Mutagenic growth and unnatural predation can both help our creatures unleash their true potential earlier than they normally would have, while leeching Bite lets one of our monsters drain vitality from another. Should something slay all of our creatures, fresh meat will resupply our numbers with a 3/3 beast for each one of our creatures that died this turn. while Izori's predation gives us a 4/4 beast for every creature our opponents control, and then they fight those creatures. Should our opponents be too frightened to attack us, Prey Upon will force one of their creatures to fight one of ours, the true epitome of survival of the fittest. The wild growth of the forests cannot be contained. Rampant growth, grow from the ashes, explosive vegetation, and traverse the outlands, all serve as reminders of nature's sprawling, unparalleled might. Once we've established a stranglehold on our mana, we can use Carrion Call, Genesis Wave, Tooth and Nail, and Green Sun Zenith to bring forth powerful and dangerous creatures. With our army assembled, Triumph of the Hordes can grant Phyrexia's infectious boon to everything we control, and demolish our opponent's forces once and for all. Should someone manage to survive, we can subvert the Call of Death with Praetors' Council and Noxious Revival to do it all over again. Birthing Pod is the only non-creature artifact I can bear the sight of. By sacrificing weaker creatures for larger ones, we can push natural evolution to its limits and storm the field with alpha predators. And speaking of predators, Lurking Predators gives us a look at the top card of our library whenever an opponent casts a spell. If it's a creature, it goes into play. Once we begin building up our creatures, evolutionary escalation will let us put 3 +1/+1 counters on one of our creatures and 3 on an opponent's. There's nothing I love more than watching 2 giants battle it out to see who is stronger. Primeval Bounty rewards us no matter what we do. If we play a creature, we get a beast. If we play a non-creature, one of our creatures gets 3 +1/+1 counters. When we play a land, we gain 3 life. Nature gives back to those she deems worthy. Finally, Primal Order punishes every player on their upkeep for however many non-basic lands they control. Aside from a single Ink Moth Nexus, our mana base is 36 basic forests. Anything else is unnatural and must be purged. There, insects. Now you know how to handle me and the unbridled power of nature on the battlefield. Go. Spread the word of the natural order far and wide, and soon all will be one. My siblings will be upon you soon to preach their words, but do not heed them. None would see all crushed and destroyed beneath her rule. Shieldred's vile mockery of life will not be tolerated. Rabrask and his pathetic empathy will be crushed and brushed aside. And Getaxias, I look forward to the day where I will see everything he has worked so hard to build destroyed underfoot.